Good. Okay. So just, I guess, to formally welcome everyone, thanks very much for joining CIPFA's Spring Employer Forum. And that's Employer Forum for those that are employers of students and apprentices studying with CIPFA. So if a couple of kind of, I guess, just housekeeping, just to repeat what I said. Obviously, if you have any questions as we go through, by all means, put in the chat box. We've allowed some time at the end for questions, but obviously as we go through, if you want to ask a question, then by all means do. And if you prefer just to be able to unmute yourself, then just obviously put your hand up or just say you would like to ask a question and we can just unmute you. Right, okay, so in terms of the agenda, I'm just going to do a quick update just regarding the qualification or the new qualification structure. Then I'm going to hand over to Sarah to talk about our tuition plans. Then I'm just going to give, again, another quick update regarding our move to a new online exams platform. And then my colleague Helen is going to talk about the role of our work-based learning coach and obviously how you can support us as employers. Then myself, actually my colleague Victoria, our marketing manager, just want to talk about our Public Finance Live conference, and then hopefully we'll still have some time for questions and answers. Okay, so without further ado, I'll make a start. So qualifications update. So hopefully some of you, or most of you, are already aware, we launched our new refreshed syllabus this term. So the way that we are doing it is we are phasing in modules, and I've got another slide in a moment that just runs through that phasing in of the modules. At the same time, we're then phasing out the old modules. So students already on program prior to this this spring term will stay on their existing learning plan with their existing modules. But what we will potentially need to do is just change some of the order of the modules to make sure that the modules that they're taking aren't being phased out, but I'll show you that in a moment. So this is the structure of the new CIPFA professional accountancy qualification. So it is now divided up into several diplomas, so students have some stopping off points along the way and can effectively collect awards as they go through the program. And then finally, they'll come out with the CIPFA professional accountancy qualification. In terms of some of the things that have changed, so over on the right hand side of the slide, it shows the new modules, and on the left hand side it shows the existing structure. So probably 80% the same, obviously, to make sure that we comply with the requirements of being awarding someone a chartered accountant. There is a set syllabus that we need to cover, but some of the areas that obviously we've updated would include things like sustainable finance, greater emphasis on digital and data, and the ability to get the interim awards. So the other thing I wanted to highlight on the left-hand side is the phasing out of some of the existing modules for your students. So there's nothing that you need to do about this as an employer, but it's just really that so you're aware. So in the learning plans for employers that have apprentices, we may need to adjust some of the learning plans to make sure that your students have, when the modules are being phased out, they have an opportunity to take the exam and also have a resit opportunity as well. So the first two modules that came in with the new structure, management accounting and financial accounting, those two exams have already had their final exam, so they would need to take the new version of those two modules. And so then the next ones that are coming up will be strategy and policy development, So we have already spoken to students and adjusted their learning plans so that they would be taking strategy and policy development. If they haven't already taken it, they'd be taking it in June this year, which then allows them a resit opportunity in September. So we are talking to your learners where required to make sure they are taking the exams in the right order. So it might need some adjustments to their learning plans, but again, nothing that you need to do other than just being aware of it. So that's CIPFA's new qualification structure, and so it's being phased in over the course of the next couple of years. So the other thing that I wanted just to quickly update you about as well is AAT. So again, you may or may not be aware that CIPFA, in terms of our training centre, delivers training for not just CIPFA qualification, but also for AAT. So from September this year, AAT are changing their qualification structure, actually for all their levels. So, so for the ones that CIPFA offer, so level 3, so the level 3 diploma in accounting. So we offer that, we offer the tuition for that, and we'll have a new cohort starting in October, in the autumn. And also for level 4. So the diploma in accounting you can do as either commercial course with CIPFA or as part of the assistant accountant apprenticeship. So these are the modules that make up the new level 3 diploma in accounting. The only additional modules, if they're doing it as an apprenticeship, there'd be the endpoint assessment, which is in addition to the 4 modules that you see here. So there'll be a synoptic assessment and a professional discussion. And then going on for level 4, this is the new structure for AAT's level 4 qualification. And they're the optional units. So we are currently looking at what we will teach as part of the level 4 program. So previously we've taught business tax and audit and assurance. So we are just looking at whether, again, they're the most relevant units. So again, it'd be useful if you are interested in this, the AAT level 4, what optional units will be most relevant for your students in terms of you as a business. So we've traditionally done business tax and audit, mainly so that because that has then that gives exemptions when they go on to do the CIPFA professional qualification, either again as an apprenticeship or commercially. So interested in your views about that. So we're also currently looking at the exemptions from AAT into CIPFA's new professional accountancy qualification. So that's the new AAT structure. If you're interested in potentially enrolling students with CIPFA for the AAT, either apprenticeship or commercially, by all means, just drop a note in the chat box, or you can email me or my colleague Victoria Davitt. I'll put our details in the chat box before the end of the presentation, or we'll put it in a follow-up. So it's just really letting you know that we offer tuition for both CIPFA and AAT. In terms of further information, it is on our website. You can go to cipfa.org/futures or cipfa.org/PAQ to have more information about our new professional qualification, and that does also include the updated specification documents or syllabuses for the different pathways, including the audit pathway, is all on our website now, if you want to have a look at that. And then finally, although it seems quite some way away, it soon catches up. In terms of our apprenticeship programs, the deadline for the level 7 apprenticeship is the 31st of July. So that's essentially, so we open applications in June in terms of sending out enrolment packs. So what we need by the end of July is a completed application form from your applicants. So I know for a number of you where you're starting off new recruits and they're perhaps not starting with you maybe until August or even beginning of September, we can still go through the enrolment process with them before they start their employment with you, but they must be in employment for the beginning of the course. So the courses will start, say, like mid-September, but I think to be safe, they really ought to have started their employment by the beginning of September. So 31st of July is the deadline. So any queries about that, do get in touch. And then for the other 3 apprenticeships that we offer, the 2 AAT programs, they start in October, so the deadline is the 31st of August. And then for those of you, so it may not be directly in your area, but for those of you that, again, it may be for your other colleagues, but we have our new counter fraud investigator apprenticeship. It's already an award-winning apprenticeship. So again, if you're interested or want to pass on details, full details are on our website around our counter fraud apprenticeship. But if you want further details, do get in touch, and either I'll come back to you or my colleague Heidi, who looks after the programme, will be more than happy to get in contact with you. Okay, so that's our 4 apprenticeship programmes and the deadlines. Just really a reminder, if you also wouldn't mind reminding your students that for the June exams, although we book them onto their courses if they're an apprentice, students do need to actually book their own exams, and the deadline from booking their own exams is the 29th of April. So that's Friday, so this week. So it may be worth you just checking in with your students. We do send them reminders, we do send them several reminders, but late fees do apply after the deadline. So it wouldn't hurt for you just to check in and make sure for all your students that they have actually booked their June exams. So that's just a request just for you to check up on your students to make sure they have actually booked for their June exams. Okay, so that's kind of just enough of an update regarding the qualification. What I'm going to now do is just hand over to Sarah Shreves, who's our head of training, just to run through our tuition plans for the upcoming term. Sarah.
Thank you, David. So unless anyone's got any questions on David's bit, but I'm sure you could probably put them in, or you can put them in the chat box, but if anyone's got any questions on that update before I start. Seems not. So thanks, David. For anyone who hasn't been on an employer forum before and met me, I'm Sarah Shreves and Head of Training Services at CIPFA, which means that I'm responsible for all of the delivery of programmes within CETC. The next bit that I'm going to just take you through is really our plans for tuition for the autumn term. It relates specifically to level 7 because there are different arrangements for the level 3 and 4 and the CFIA, which I can happily take questions on or cover separately, but just to sort of caveat that this is about level 7 provision. So next slide, please, David. Thank you. So just to contextualize it a little bit and give you an overview of where we are, where we've come from, as we sort of creep back to something resembling a bit of normality following lockdowns and travel restrictions and new and hybrid ways of working. As I say, we are creeping back to adding more face-to-face provision into our programs. And it is a sort of a slow but steady journey, and I can come to some of those reasons why in a moment. But essentially, just to give you an overview of where we are and where we've come from. Obviously, as you'll all be perfectly aware, we moved online in March 2020. We were conscious, I think, that web classes can be, well, they are obviously very different from face-to-face, and it can be a different level of engagement and participation from students. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to have small group sessions with other students and with their trainers, so that they can be perhaps feeling a bit more comfortable with, asking questions and having discussions, etc., in that small group environment. So the tutorials were implemented in 2020, and they are here to stay for our web classes. They will be a kind of permanent fixture, so that they can be getting that small group feel. In autumn 2021, so late last year, we did bring some face-to-face back into our timetables. We put face-to-face introduction days and in face-to-face revision, so sort of top and tail approach, if you like, for some modules in a range of locations. We have, glad to hear that the tutorials have gone down well, Julie, thank you. We've widened that out this term, so it's in the spring term. We've got those face-to-face introductory days and revision sessions offered across all modules. So it was just some modules last term, so all modules, but still in a sort of limited range of locations this term. Next slide, please, David. Thank you. So just really sort of reflecting on I suppose where we've come from and where we are now. We've had a mixed take up, I have to be honest, with the face-to-face introduction and revision days, and sort of unpicking why that might be is quite interesting. And I think, we would certainly say that there's quite a short time lag between booking the module and getting the invitation to the introductory face-to-face session. So there may be some sort of logistical issues there which get in the way of students attending the introduction days. But we are definitely finding some students just articulating a preference for web classes with the sort of convenience and flexibility that they offer. But we are still sort of seeing and experiencing this disconnect between what students are telling us, students and employers are telling us that how they're wanting to sort of consume their learning, if you like, and then what they're actually doing. So it's this disconnect between desire and action. So we're hearing a lot of kind of bring back face-to-face, would like to engage with training face-to-face, but we are still having to cancel introduction and revision sessions due to low take-up. So, we're keen to be bringing face-to-face back into the programme, because that's what we're hearing that students want. But when it comes down to it, we are still having to cancel sessions due to low take-up. So, it is a challenge that we're grappling with at the moment. And Andrew, yes, a request for provision in North East of England. We've got Birmingham and Manchester as our options other than London. So I absolutely appreciate that even Manchester, as the furthest north, is quite far from the northeast of England. So we're wrestling with the numbers. We're wrestling with the sort of disconnect between desire and action. We are very keen to be putting on face-to-face. There's no lack of desire from us or our trainers, but I'm sure you'll understand that we do need viable numbers. So we're crunching the data and trying to make sensible decisions and trying to please as many people as possible in relation to what we're putting on and where. Next slide, please, David. So meanwhile, we are also making ongoing enhancements to the web class experience. So the rollout of Zoom from the start of this year seems to have been well received. We are encouraging trainers and encouraging students to use the breakout room function, so that both we can be replicating some of the kind of social element for students of being in class. We recognise it's really important for students to be developing their professional networks, both into the long term, but also just for the module itself, so they can be sharing any study queries and challenges with each other. So from that sort of social learning perspective, we're keen that at the beginning of the sessions that we just put people into breakout rooms so they can meet other people in their groups. But we can also be using the breakout rooms for small group exercises, activities and discussions. And the breakout rooms are much, seem to be popular in terms of students actually feeling that they're able to and keen to put their webcams and mics on. We do continue to encourage students to engage with their trainer and with others via webcams and mics. That seems to be more popular in breakout rooms, or more acceptable in breakout rooms and tutorials. But we do continue to encourage students to do that, because we do think that the learning outcomes are better if they are engaging, and there's some jeopardy in there in actually engaging and being seen on webcams, because we all know in these things it's very easy to start looking at your emails or getting distracted by other things. So the more the students can be actively engaged in the classes, obviously the better the learning outcome. So we do continue to encourage that, and we would ask for your support in encouraging students to do that as well. We're also on a party to, and we know we don't always get this right, but to limit numbers in those web classes. We're looking for around 30-35 as an absolute maximum, and we've been reducing the caps on classes over the terms as we've been delivering everything on via web classes. I'll come to this in a minute as well, but we've also launched a new virtual learning environment that's rolled out this term for MA and FA students, and will be rolled out to all students, or pretty much all students, in the autumn term. And I'll come to that, but that's got some really nice features and functions and allows for a much better kind of user experience. So next slide, please, David. So moving forward, looking at autumn 2022, we're pushing further into our return to having face-to-face options, and we will have one full face-to-face class option per module. Now, those are currently timetabled to all take place in London. We absolutely recognise that this won't be popular for all. We absolutely recognise that that means that people in the northeast, the northwest, southwest, that's going to be difficult for students. And it is a start. It's the start of a journey. That's what I would say. And as I said earlier, we are very keen to put on courses that meet demand and meet desire for particular modalities. We need to see how this goes. As I say, we are seeing this disconnect between desire and action. We do need minimum viable numbers. So that's a start for autumn 22, and we hope to be rolling that out further for spring 2023. In the meantime, we will continue with obviously the web classes as we have been delivering them, with a small group tutorial support, and there will be an option for face-to-face revision in various locations for every module. And that's where we'll be looking hard at where the best places to hold those revision sessions are, dependent on student numbers and their kind of home and work locations. And as I said, there will be a full rollout of the new VLE to all students. Next slide, please, David. So yes, that's really just reiterating what I'm saying in terms of 2023 and beyond. We will be very much assessing the take-up of all face-to-face options, both in terms of the full face-to-face modules, but also the revision sessions that we're offering face-to-face. And we'll be engaging in dialogue with students and employers in relation to the kind of modality preferences. And as I say, our aim is very much to be demand-led and timetable face-to-face courses where we have that demand. Next slide, please, David. So happy to take questions on that, but I've just got a couple of slides on the new VLE just to give you a small kind of look at what it looks like. So not sure how many of you have seen the current or the old VLE, but this is a much nicer kind of look and feel. It's much cleaner and crisper, and has it's much easier navigation for students. It also enables us to feed students with generic program level or apprenticeship specific materials. So you can see along the top there, we can put on all the handbooks in there, so we don't have to make huge joining instructions with lots of attachments. Everything will be in the VLE, so we can give people kind of nice to have e-learning. So it's not necessarily e-learning that forms part of the curriculum, but we can be adding value to their studies and to their work with our, particularly we're launching a range of micro modules on all sorts of subjects that all students will have access to. Our ethics e-learning module within that tab there, but all their key contacts, access to safeguarding and welfare materials, so they can access our wellbeing hub via that safeguarding icon there, direct links to student benefits and signing up to things like our CPD bike service, for example. So everything will be in one place. And if they want to have a look at all our policies and processes, then they can also do that via that final icon there. But as I say, it enables us to send out announcements and messages to people who are all on the same programme, which we haven't been able to do to date. Next slide, please, David. Also, as per usual, but just in a much nicer looking environment, we will be giving students access, as you'd expect, to all of their learning materials via the days where they would expect to see it for their study. So if they're dialing into a web class, or they're coming to a class, or they've missed a session, they can find everything in one place. So that's obviously the slides, all of their workbooks will be in there, quizzes they'll find, you can see in the top bar at the top, there's a place for quizzes where they'll find all of those and can engage with those. There are little features like Meet the Trainer. I think there's a little example there. Discussion forums are in there as we've had before, but just a bit easier to navigate. I think that next one, David, please. So all the discussion forums are in there with the trainers uploading summaries of the day and enabling students to ask questions and see all the answers in there. Also new that we've got an integration with Zoom that we need to do a little bit more work on, but ultimately the students should be able to log into the VLE and access absolutely everything. So they will be able to join their web classes via the Zoom link that's in here. Next one, please, David. And also, this is actually, although you can see it's got a Zoom logo, this is another tab within the VLE itself. That's an automated process. Almost a couple of hours after the web class has finished, the recording will appear automatically, and you can see it there. They can just find the recording that they're looking for, click and view it all within the VLE. So quite a lot of enhancements there, and as I say, that will be rolled out to all students in the autumn term. That's it on my update. I'm happy to just have a quick look at questions or take questions. Yeah, Northeast provisions, 5 students in Stockton. I think the issue is we may have a number of students in a particular area. It's how many students we've got doing particular modules in a term that's the problem. So if you've got 5 students, then obviously that's great, but if they're not all doing the same module, that's where we have the challenges. Tabitha will be insisting on face-to-face for students once the course is fully face-to-face. It's been hard to insist. Yes, yeah, and I understand that, and I suppose we had tried to meet demand in putting on the introductory days and the face-to-face, but then when students don't actually sign up for them and we're cancelling, it's very difficult for us to be confident enough to timetable, to continue to timetable things that haven't been well attended. So it's a really difficult challenge that we've got. I would say we want to have a dialogue with you. We want to have a dialogue with students. We obviously want to be providing a programme that meets demand and meets the desire and the preferences for learning styles. But obviously we do need to have viable numbers.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sarah. And I think as part of that dialogue, obviously there's a certain amount that we can do on this sort of forum. but we are also keen to get together with our employers in a slightly perhaps longer format and face-to-face. But I'll talk more about that when it comes up in the agenda item. Okay, so thanks, Sarah. Obviously, if anyone more questions, either put in the chat box or we'll hopefully have time for some questions at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to move swiftly on and just give a brief update. I know we mentioned this in previous employer forums, that we have commissioned and we are looking to move towards a new online exams platform. So we're moving from the current one, which you'll know as Calibrand, to a company called Eintech and their Rogo platform. So there's a number of things that in terms that we are working with Eintech in terms of development to make the new e-assessment platform to give us some flexibility about how we assess students, and for example to use things like integration with Excel or an Excel, a similar Excel program. So we're testing real world skills. In terms of how and when we are rolling this out, we are looking to, our current plan remains that we are looking to start using the new exam system for either the September or the December exam sittings. However, that will depend on how the development with Eintech actually go. So that's our current time frame. We will update you and obviously all students in the summer as how that's going. If we don't think we're ready in that development, then we'll launch in 2023 with an e-assessment system. We want to be absolutely certain that the system is ready to go. So we will be erring on the side of caution, but we will update you all via the employer forums and correspondence. So in terms of what we're doing, so that will be for September 22. And that will also be the rollout for our things like our practice and specimen exams as well. In terms of what we are looking to do with the new system, so that's two types of question types: objective testing, so where there's a right and a wrong answer, and the subjective, where it's a more written-based answer. There's some of the different types of assessments that we can use as part of the examinations. Doesn't mean we're going to use all of them, but there's some of the new ones we can use. And certainly if you look under the subjective area, that's bringing in testing student skills in terms of using spreadsheets. So back to the kind of the everyday use, as well as the more text area, or being able to upload a file, for example, and then the usual essay stuff as well. And then that involves us where we can have a mixture of student answers that are system marked, and others obviously that they're still then human marked. So the next stage of the development will be in May, where we'll look for those students that have already volunteered. We'll be looking to actually do some user acceptance testing with those students and employers. So we'll probably go out and just ask again those people that are interested in that. We're getting that feedback on where we are with the user acceptance testing, which starts in May. So we will keep you informed of developments, and then in the summer let you know whether we are looking to launch the system this year, later this year, or whether in fact it will be next year. Okay, so next we're just going to move on to my colleague Helen Woods, who's our Apprenticeship Delivery Manager, just to talk about the role of the work-based learning coach and how you can support us with that for apprenticeship. So Helen, are you around?
I am here, David. Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I am the Apprenticeship Delivery Manager. So I look after all of the aspects of the students' journey who are apprentices, sort of beyond the tuition, the work-based learning side of everything that they do. And I look after those work-based learning coaches that work with them. So we thought it would be useful for me to give you an overview of what those coaches are aiming to do, how they're aiming to work with your apprentices and with you as the employer. So David, if we could go to the next slide. The key role of the work-based learning coach is to have quarterly progress review meetings with each apprentice. They work with an apprentice usually throughout the journey of their apprenticeship, so they'll get to know them over that sort of 3.5 year period, and hold those quarterly progress review meetings with them. That's for level 7. Our level 3 and 4 apprentices have meetings slightly more often, usually about every 8 weeks. So the 12 weekly meetings for level 7 students, the aim is to work with the line manager of the apprentice to make those quarterly progress review meetings as meaningful as possible. They work through at each meeting a progress review form that follows a kind of a pattern and a series of themes. And so there will emerge a bit of a continuity and pattern to each of these meetings. The first element is to encourage the apprentice to reflect on the learning that they're doing as part of their programme. And obviously underpinning that are the tuition courses that Sarah and David have been talking about earlier on this forum. When we say reflect, we actually want in those meetings to be making judgments about whether that tuition is working for them. So it's about much more than what they're booked on and whether or not they're attending it. It's actually getting them to think about, is this mode of delivery working? Do you feel that you're on top of the modules that you're studying right now? Is the content going in? And if the answer to that is not, then it's talking about the things that we can do about that. So Sarah's already mentioned tutorials. We do also have some extra support days that are scheduled into trainers' workloads. There's the option to do some one-to-one with individual apprentices. It may be that we can talk to you about the fact that if they're struggling to understand the application of the theoretical content, maybe they could go and see it in action in the workplace, perhaps shadow somebody, talk to somebody where that forms part of their day-to-day role. So it's those sorts of discussions that should be happening in those progress review meetings, and always encouraging the apprentice to contact the apprenticeship team if they feel that the tuition isn't working for them, to talk about what else we can do. We also then want to support the apprentice to document their work experience. So that's the next thing that is usually discussed at the progress review meetings. The work that they have been doing and also the work that they're planning to do. How that work is scheduled around what they're studying and how it might help them to understand what they're studying, but also making sure that it will ultimately enable them to put together a portfolio which will sign off all of the skills and behaviours within the apprenticeship standard and enable them to answer whichever of the endpoint assessment questions they are allocated in their project report element of their final test of professional competence. So at each of those progress review meetings, the coach will be talking to the apprentice and to the line manager about how they feel the work that they have done already is coming along, written up, mapped to the skills and behaviours within their Smart Assessor portfolio system. We've developed a grid which looks at the progress they're making on taking each of those skills and behaviours all the way up to fully competent, the kind of the level 7 standard that they will be assessed on at endpoint assessment. That grid has been designed to show progression, but also to provide some kind of accessible feeling stepping stones. So it's a tool that we're using. It's not so important to be assessing, is that accurately a 2 or accurately a 3? We're on our way to the full 6 steps that mean we know they're fully competent and can tackle the endpoint assessment. So we don't want to disappear down too much of a rabbit hole in terms of defining the difference between a 1 and a 2 or a 2 and a 3 within those meetings. It's much more about, are they moving forward? Do they feel that they're making progress? Can they, and also you as their employers and their line managers, see that those skills and behaviours and their application of the knowledge that they're learning at college, can we see them getting stronger? Can we see them making the progress that that we would expect. The next thing that they'll move on to in those progress review meetings is talking about the records that each apprentice needs to keep of the 20% off the job training that they're doing. We need to make sure that those records are complete, and we need to make sure that they have a meaningful description in the record that they're keeping in Smart Assessor. They get lots of guidance about how to keep those records in Smart Assessor. There are little webinar clips that show them. There's a written guide with lots of screenshots. All of these things should be quite easy. It's not supposed to be an onerous task. And the advice that I give to them actually is to just have Smart Assessor in their toolbar, and at least weekly, possibly more often, just drop into it and just make direct entries into that 20% off the job training record. They literally can type a couple of short sentences in, denote the date, the duration of the 20% off the job training that they want to capture. And we just need to make sure that they've written something that shows it belongs in their 20% off the job training record. So if they've done some training, they can't just write training. We've got to be able to see that it's relevant to the apprenticeship standard. So if it's training that's on, I don't know, treasury management, that's what they need to put, because then it's obviously of relevance to their apprenticeship. At each progress review, we'd want to see some movement on at least one or two of these areas. So the pattern of the progress reviews will kind of follow the pattern of the apprenticeship. Depending on the timing of these quarterly reviews, they might be in a heavy exam period, and lots of the conversation will be around the preparation for those exams. And that one might be a bit lighter on progress that they've made with their work experience write-ups. The next one, you would hope, would have flipped the other way, and maybe they've had a bit of a lull in tuition courses. They've focused on their work experience write-ups. So each review will be subtly different, but we will look to cover and reflect on and talk about each of those three areas at each review. And then, as part of the use of Smart Assessor, the electronic progress review form within it allows us to set actions, and we would aim for those to be smart actions, obviously, so nice and specific with deadlines, and they're all about keeping the apprentice feeling clear about what they need to do next, feeling supported, and feeling on track. Okay, hopefully all that made sense. If we could flip to the next slide, David. This really is my attempt to capture some of the tips that existing line managers have said make this process as easy and as painless as possible. And the key thing really, which sounds painfully obvious, but in busy diaries is perhaps not that easy, is to attend those progress review meetings. So our expectation would be that at the vast majority of those progress review meetings, the apprentice would have their line manager or their training manager there with them. And there are lots of reasons for that. Sometimes apprentices are not actually very good at seeing where they are moving forward and developing, and it's helpful to have a line manager that can help them pull out those things that they're actually improving on. They can also see how the work experience is moving forward and mapping to the skills and behaviours, and maybe suggest areas of work that the apprentice could have some access to if those are going to be helpful. The odd meeting without a manager there, obviously if somebody's sick, someone's on holiday, etc., not the end of the world, but for the vast majority of the meetings, we do like to see a line manager present. And also to see that there's some check off of the actions between reviews. It's actually a big waste of your time as well to be sat in a review where the apprentice is simply saying, no, I haven't done that. No, I haven't done that either. No, didn't do that. So as part of regular one-to-ones, which I'm sure fall more frequently than these 12 weekly meetings, it's useful to incorporate those as just part of the regular one-to-one meetings that you have. Check off those actions between reviews, see if some progress has been made, make sure the apprentice has something meaningful ready to make the use of your time at that meeting productive and effective. They should be uploading the write-ups of their work experience to Smart Assessor in between. There's an easy resubmit button, so if they upload something and then decide they want a better version of it, it's a simple process to just resubmit things. So linking the sort of review comments that you write on the progress review forms to your internal appraisal process, to your kind of internal development of these apprentices. It's not just about exam passes, it's about those soft skills that they're developing, but they're all the same sort of soft skills that we would be looking to see develop in a professional anyway. So I don't think it will be adding anything onerous or extra. It just ought to work consistently alongside that internal appraisal process. And it works really effectively where apprentices understand that as part of the contract that they have with you, performing well in their apprenticeship, putting in the effort, making sure that they comply with all of these aspects of the apprenticeship is forming part of their employment. The whole thing kind of fits together very neatly. It's also true that line managers can often prompt suggestions for things that are missing from the off-the-job training record. Sometimes apprentices get a bit hung up on the idea that it's just their college tuition, and actually it's way more than that. You need to be giving them 20% of their contracted time to develop, but actually lots of the things that you almost undoubtedly do with them at work already feed into this 20% off the job training. When they get the opportunity to try a new task, to apply something that they haven't done before, to shadow somebody else, to attend an internal training course, all of these things belong in their 20% off the job training record. So they need to identify the internal training courses they do with you as an employer that are relevant to the development of any of the areas of knowledge, skill, or behaviour. And they can put those into that record. I've had lots of apprentices say that they actually find it really rewarding to do that because it's an explicit acknowledgement of the investment that you're making in them. Actually, they also say it's quite good in terms of future interview preparation, that they look back at this record afterwards and they see all of the areas that they have been trained and developed in, and it gives them the confidence to say, yes, actually I have come a really long way since the beginning of this apprenticeship, and I do have this knowledge and these skills and I'm competent in these areas. Once they've got that competence, they obviously evidence that as part of the work experience that they write up. That work experience goes into their Smart Assessor portfolio. They decide what to map it to, and you as the employer, as the line manager, are signing off that you recognise those work experience write-ups as a genuine, legitimate representation of the level of responsibility and the competence that they demonstrated in the workplace. That's effectively what you're signing to say. And I would say it's helpful to review and sign those off as you go, rather than that feeling like a mammoth task at the end of the process, but also very necessary because we want to see progress in all aspects of the apprenticeship for it to be eligible for the levy funding. So we will definitely be starting to review these records, and the apprentices are aware that we are reviewing these records in Smart Assessor. We book their tuition for the coming terms, and we won't be looking to just overload them with more tuition if these other aspects of the apprenticeship aren't also moving forward. We would be having a conversation with them about what more can we do to support you moving forward these work experience related aspects of the apprenticeship before we actually look at just keep passing the exams. So the whole thing should become quite joined up. And then just the final thing I would say is always ask us for input if you think that that would be useful. So there are a couple of employers, and I think a couple actually even on the call, that I, for example, do joint webinars with their apprentices and their learners, and very much helps for us to answer each other's questions as we go in those webinars and kind of present a very united front that makes it very clear how we want this to work and what the support that is available to the apprentices will be. So if ever you think there are opportunities where I might be able to help or support with that, please don't hesitate to shout. Similarly, if ever any aspect of this is feeling onerous or difficult, if you're sat there looking at Smart Assessor thinking, which box am I meant to be ticking again? Just shout. Just email us at apprenticeships@cipfa.org. We'll jump on a Teams call, we'll share screens, we'll walk through it. This is never supposed to be a difficult thing. We're always there to give that bit of backup if that would be useful. Okay, David, thank you. That's all. Obviously, any questions, happy to take.
Thanks, Helen. What I'm going to do now, actually, we've just got one more item on the agenda, and then we'll open it up for any questions either for Helen or for myself or Sarah about the tuition or about anything we've covered so far. So thank you, Helen. So finally then, Public Finance Live. Just wanted to talk a couple of things about that. So Public Finance Live is CIPFA's annual conference. So delighted to say that this year we will be returning back to a face-to-face conference in July, taking place in Liverpool. So the conference takes place on the 13th and 14th of July, which is actually Wednesday and Thursday, the 14th of July. So what we wanted to do, and I'll be interested to hear what people's views are, is that we'd very much like to, rather than kind of a whistle-stop tour for an hour, is actually get our employers together and have a slightly longer employer forum and face-to-face, so we can actually you can have some meaningful conversations with other employers who are in a similar situation to yourself, and just talk about some of the challenges and experiences that you have, and that is best done face-to-face. So what our plan is to hold the next employer forum, the summer employer forum, prior to our conference, Public Finance Live, in Liverpool. So to hold it on the Tuesday afternoon, so it would be the whole of the Tuesday afternoon prior to the conference. So that would enable you, if you wanted to stay on for the conference as well. So what we've put together is that obviously you can attend the meeting Tuesday afternoon, the employer forum, and obviously we can talk about an agenda and what other items that you might want to cover in more detail, but just have the opportunity to meet each other will just be such a great opportunity. What I've also negotiated is any of our employers that attend the Summer Employer Forum in Liverpool, we would also invite you to attend the President's Dinner, which takes place on the Tuesday evening in Liverpool. And then if you wanted to stay on for the conference, we've also negotiated a discounted rate. I'd love it to be free, but it is a commercial event. So if you wanted just to attend on the first day, it says Tuesday the 13th, should be Wednesday the 13th of July, it would be £295 plus VAT. Or if you wanted to attend both days of the conference, it would be £545 plus VAT. So what I wanted to do now is just to get an idea from you whether you are interested in this. Actually, Sarah, could you just go into the poll? There is a poll on here and it's just not giving me access to it. I don't know if you can access the poll, Sarah, and put it on the screen. Don't worry if not.
I am launching it. I've launched it, and I think some people can see it.
Good.
Well, hopefully everyone can see it, but I know that some people can see it because I'm seeing the results coming in.
Thank you, because it wasn't letting me me do it. So yeah, so clearly I know some people need to, but just wanted to get an idea, because clearly if no one's able to attend or can't attend, then we would go back to an online forum. But I think what we do, I don't think we would do a hybrid event. I think we would, if there's enough interest, we would just do the event as a face-to-face, and then we can have some slightly some more content and just allow more time for people to be able to network and talk to each other. I think is probably the biggest benefit of being able to talk to people in a same situation as yourself and share those ideas and best practices face to face, and just to meet other employers. So that would be the aim of it.
So David, I'm just sharing the results just in case you can't see them. We've got 35% saying yes, 22% saying no, and 43% saying maybe.
Okay, good, excellent. Yeah, that's really, really useful. Thank you, everyone. We will send out details after the event, and then we'll send out a more formal invite sort of nearer the time, but certainly giving you, sort of at least sort of 6 weeks notice to be able to plan your diaries and things. So hopefully that's something that people will be able to take advantage of, and it'd just be nice to see our employers face to face. And then very finally, I'm conscious of time. If Victoria, our marketing manager, is around. Victoria, did you want to just talk about this opportunity for your students?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Strachan, CIPFA's Lifelong Learning and International Marketing Manager. We're looking for 8 to 10 students to take part in a special roundtable event at this year's student conference, which is being held on the 13th of July in Liverpool. As you may be aware, the student conference is a dedicated program that's run specifically for students, and it's held each year as part of Public Finance Live. The roundtable topic is inspired by CIPFA's recent Investing in Regional Equality report, which you might be aware of, and it will focus on levelling up and what public finance leaders can do to address regional inequalities. The roundtable will be chaired by the report's author and CIPFA's chief economist, Jeff Matsu, and it will be a great opportunity, we think, for students who are interested in this area to discuss their views and ideas amongst their peers or with their peers. We'll be asking the student panelists what kind of levelling up policies they think would be effective in their own areas and whether they've seen anything that has been particularly successful. So really looking for their input on this debate. I think it'll be a great chance for them to develop their public speaking skills. The student conference takes place in a specific room at the conference venue, and the selected panelists will be seated on a small stage with Jeff in front of their fellow CIPFA students. And of course, there'll be an open discussion towards the end that will involve everybody. The session will be also covered by PQ magazine, and it will feature across CIPFA's news channels. So it's also a chance for students to raise their personal profiles as well. Given the session theme and our commitment to diversity inclusion, we really want to hear from students from right across the UK. It's obviously an essential part of the levelling up agenda. So to facilitate this, CIPFA is covering all transport and accommodation costs, plus the cost of conference tickets for the selected panelists. So the main message from me to you today is, if you think your students might be interested in this opportunity, please encourage them to apply by sending an email to me. And this email should just provide a little bit of background, where they're based and why they'd like to be considered, just to make sure that we get that diversity of representation from across the board. Deadline for applications is Friday the 1st of July, and we'll be constantly talking about this through student newsletters and membership matters and things. But if you think your students might be interested and this is something that they would be looking to take part in, please do encourage them to contact me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Victoria. And obviously, even if they're not chosen as part of the roundtable panelists, all students can attend the conference, the first day of the conference, which is the student conference, free of charge. If they're a current student, they can attend the conference free of charge, because there's a separate stream with some events specifically, including this one, specifically aimed at our student population, but they also do attend some of the main events as well. So it is worth encouraging them to attend if they can, and you allow them the time away from work for the day. Okay, so that is all of the topics we were going to cover. I'm conscious that we've run a couple of minutes over, but very happy to answer questions. Julie, you had a question about exam deadline. Is it also the same date for deferrals? Yes, I believe it is the same date as well. So if they are planning on deferring, they also will need to do that by this Friday as well. Brian just asked the question, can AAT students apply? Brian, is that, I don't know if you want to unmute your thing, apply to be part of the round table? I think yes,
that's right, yes.
Okay, so if they are studying with CIPFA, Victoria, is that?
Yes, absolutely. If they're CIPFA students, of course they can apply to take part. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And oh yeah, sorry, there's a question from Andrew about our new accredited employer scheme, which Catherine has answered. Thank you, Catherine. So I know we have just launched our new accredited employer scheme. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? Do feel free just to unmute yourself if that's quicker and easier. We will hang around for 5 or 10 minutes longer, but I will stop the recording now and end